welcome back to the Movable Feasters, Tasting Level 3, the podcast where we explore wines through the lens of our personal WSET 3 learning journey. I am Andrea from the Movable Feasters, and each week we dive into a new wine, unpacking its grape, its region, and tasting it using the SAT. Whether you are studying for WSET or just love discovering new wines, this podcast is for you. Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Movable Feasters Tasting Level 3. In this episode we are going to talk about Cava, Spain's renowned sparkling wine. And we are doing that after we have just spent a weekend in Penedes, the most famous region for producing Cava in Spain. We of course got to try more than the one recommended Cava, but we are going to concentrate on this episode on two wines that we've tasted, white Cava and a rosé. But more to that in the tasting part of the episode. I would like to, as usually, start with the wine theory. So, as we said, the WSET recommends some wines, and between the sparkling wines, they recommend trying a Cava from Spain. By the sparkling wines, they don't have essential and optional wines. In Spain, they just recommend an essential wine, the Cava. So, we're going into the theory. Cava, as I said, is a DO, but it is quite an unusual DO since it covers different regions across Spain that are not in vicinity to one another. So the usual DOs that we know are geographical regions that are in proximal vicinity. If they use the same DO for Cava, this is different. The vast majority of Cava comes from the Catalan vineyards around Sant Sadurní d'Anoia, so around Penedes, where we have been. But Cava is also allowed to be produced in other Spanish regions. And the book mentions Navarra, Rioja, and Valencia. The climate for this region is Mediterranean with warm and dry summers and mild winters. The Cava is produced just like champagne using the traditional method, so that means that you have a primary fermentation which creates a still base wine. And afterwards you have a secondary fermentation which happens in the bottle after adding a tirage. So you add yeast and sugar and you have a secondary fermentation in the bottle. For Cava, there are also definite rules. You need to know that it has to spend at least 9 months on lease, whereas some undergo extensive lease aging. You have more requirements for Reserva and Grand Reserva, but the book only mentions the 9 months for Cava. A big difference to champagne, if you're asking yourself, is the fact that Cava is traditionally not produced from Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, but there are 3 specific grapes from which it is made that you need to know, and those are Macabeo, Xarel·lo, and Parellada. Recently, it is also permitted that use Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, which some winemakers use to add some fruit and acidity to their wines, but the traditional grapes are the other 3 that I mentioned. For the rosé, you can also use Garnacha and Monastrell. If we want to talk about the style and the characteristics of the Cava, the wines are typically dry. You have light to medium body. You have a medium acidity, so that is lower than in champagne. In champagne, you usually have a higher acidity. And in Cava, you also have fine, persistent bubbles. You have some yeast autolysis aromas, but they are somehow different than the ones you get in champagne. You, of course, have primary flavors that include citrus, green apple, almond, brioche, and sometimes subtle herbal notes. For us, we had the impression that many of the cavas we tasted definitely had an aroma of papaya in it. The cava styles, they range from Brut Natur, that is the very dry one where all the sugar has been transformed into alcohol, but you also have the sweet variants, the Dulce. So you can get all the sweetness levels in the cava. Most cavas that are produced are non-vintage and they are ready to drink once they are released. Okay, now I'm going to go on to the tasting. As I have said, we had the chance to taste many wines, but we decided to use our SAT tasting notes for two of the wines. For a white cava made out of the traditional grapes, out of Macabeo, Xarel·lo, and Pareada, and a rosé wine that was made also using Garnacha. I'm going to go through the tasting notes in parallel for both of the wines. So, starting with the appearance, they were both clear wines. We had a pale intensity in the white wine and somewhat a medium intensity in the rosé. The color was lemon in the white wine, and we had some orange hues in the rosé, I would say salmon pink. The bubbles were fine. And then going to the nose, the condition of the nose was clean. We've got a medium intensity of the aromas in the white cava and definitely a medium plus in the rosé. In the white cava, we got aromas, primary aromas of papaya, pear, apple, and honeysuckle, whereas in the rosé, we got some orange marmalade, some strawberry, but also a bit of red apple. In both of them, we got secondary aromas of bread and biscuit, and also some hint of tertiary, some honey in the white cava. The development of the nose, we would say that they were in developing. On the palate, we got two dry wines. The acidity was medium in both of them. The alcohol level was also medium, and the body was also medium. We got a delicate mousse, and we got a medium pronounced flavor intensity in the white wines and the medium plus in the rosé. We again got flavor characteristic in the white wine of primary flavors, green fruit, lemon, and quince, but also some biscuity secondary, whereas in the rosé wine we mostly got primary flavors, again of some orange marmalade, some strawberry, and some orange as well. The finish was medium plus for both wines, so in conclusion, we decided that the quality level of both wines was very good. We thought that since the length of the wine was medium plus and not a long finish, and since the intensity was only medium in the white wine, they don't really qualify for outstanding wines, but they're definitely very good wines. So that would be it for the SAT tasting. We definitely think that is one wine worth trying. We're big champagne lovers, and we find it interesting to see that Cava is not just Spain's champagne, but it has its own character and its own traditions, so it's definitely worth a try. I really hope that this theory prepares you for the tasting and understanding of Cava, and that you will pop yourself a bottle in the next days. If you enjoyed this episode, next week I will be coming back with another tasting of a Pinot Noir from the New World, so stay tuned. That's a wrap for today's episode of Tasting Level 3. Don't forget to follow us, the Movable Feasters, on Instagram for more tasting adventures. We do a reel on each podcast episode where you can leave us a comment or your remarks on the episode. Cheers to learning one glass at a time.